our information ecosystem is changing, and we're getting more of our information, from social media. Even, I've got a TV monitor in here, and I was not aware that Dick Cheney passed away, as you heard in my surprise in the last segment. But on a serious note, this is affecting our democracy. This is affecting how people go out and vote, how they have discussions with their family and friends. So how do we deal with that threat, knowing that the information that we used to get is much different than we get now?
That is a really complicated question.
Yes.
There's basically quite a few things that we can do, but I think it's always good to take a step back and say, what's the problem? We often hear about polarization and the sort of idea that society is inherently getting more polarized, where the people who used to disagree with us are no longer people who we see the world differently as, but as people who we hate, or who are, the fact that they exist in the country is sort of an existential threat. Those kinds of ideas are not simply organic within Canada. And we always have to take a step back and say, what countries are interested in amplifying conflict within the country? Because as we've found out with the Ukraine war, actually invading a country using military tactics is really messy and very uncertain. But pumping a lot of really negative influence campaigns into a country allows a country to tear itself apart. And therefore, you don't have to use, and I think the United States is a really good example of that. And so whenever we hear about polarization, whenever you see things online that are this kind of incredibly amped up, it often is other people outside of the country amplifying those differences. And so there's a lot that we can do. One, in some of our research, and we sort of looked at this stuff internationally, we looked at it in Canada, and we looked at it in Saskatchewan. But one of the things that you can always have to remember is, what am I receiving from where? And when I click things through, I am contributing that. And you actually are the most important part. Because when we looked at the research, it's actually usually a very small number of channels that find ways of putting things into the sort of organic communities. Because robots and stuff, they have other robots as friends. They don't have actual human beings, right? And so what you really have to do is you have to kind of trick normal human beings into sending this information to their community. Because guess what? Their community will believe it because they're sending it. And so you create a certain amount of legitimacy and authenticity by clicking through. And so being really careful what you click through and really being clear on where it comes from is one of the most important things we can do at an individual level.
As far as education goes, how do we help each other and help the public understand that some of these campaigns are being targeted at Canadians, at Americans from foreign actors?
So one of the things that we looked at was for the sort of 6 months before the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, to see how much basically disinformation, how much sort of Russian influence campaign was hitting Canadians, not the world, but Canadians specifically. And because we hear a lot about that, it's not, foreign influence isn't a huge part of what's going on. And actually that's not true. It may not change the sort of election outcome of a particular area, but it is definitely transforming how people see the world. And so we were able to show that the community and the sort of weaponization of the far left and the far right in Canada was quite a significant community, one of the most active political communities, and we compared that to members of parliament. And this sort of far left, far right that was focused on sort of Russian disinformation got 4 times more engagement and produced 27 times more content than all of our MPs put together, and the community that they're part of. And so it does have a fairly significant effect, and it is able to push messages. I mean, we all have uncles and parents and brothers who kind of get lost down the conspiracy rabbit hole. That's part of what this is about. And it's making sure that those communities are always got fresh material, because Russians or Chinese are monitoring what's happening in Canada every day. And so like the death of Dick Cheney, for example, you're going to have all kinds of stories, and it's going to be amplified in the U.S. on all sides to just ensure that all the different sides of the spectrum start going at each other in really, sort of as violent a way in online as can be made possible.
Do you think people understand that they're being manipulated by someone from outside of their own border?
This is a question that we spend a lot of time with. I think what we have learned is that what makes disinformation so effective in a particular country is when it is tailored, and these campaigns are tailored to issues going on in that country, so it becomes less obvious. If you're listening about, some nuclear power plant or some new Russian missile, yeah, it's probably coming from outside of Canada. But where it becomes really pernicious is when it's actually using issues in Canada that, for example, the budget. You're going to have all kinds of Russian disinformation campaigns around the budget, what they're going to be cutting, not cutting. So it is much much harder to recognize it because it is being tailored to Canadians. And therefore, it is actually really challenging. The question just becomes, is this the tone you want to set? And I think as soon as we start treating people who have different opinions around policy as if they don't belong in our country and they are what's somehow the country's going to, that's, I think, the moment when the dial is turned to 11 for the old people who understand the reference. That's, I think, where as individuals we bear some responsibility. Is this how we want to contribute to dialogue and discourse in Canada?
How can Canada combat this?
This is an important question. So one of the things that our center is doing, and we are literally in the process of, in the last couple of weeks, and perhaps working with a number of government departments, is actually building, it's basically an AI arms race, building the AI agents that are able to, at scale and at speed, examine everything that's coming in every hour or every day, depending on, and saying, here are the stories that we can identify as Russian disinformation, and be able to sort of produce the analysis that shows that, show the sort of themes in the previous week, and then what can we do about it? And this is presenting to journalists, to social media sort of users, but even to government. Sort of this in real-time analysis that says, here's what it is, here's the audience, here's what they're trying to do, and to be able to pump that back into the system. But you need AI agents to be able to do that at scale. And they don't exist in Canada at the level of accuracy and nuance that is required to deal with a lot of what we're seeing. Sort of generic ones are, yes, I can tell that this is pro-Russian,
yes.
But like, what is its history? Where does it come from? Where has it shown up before? To really be able to show that level of analysis and then compile it together into something meaningful.
So in the near future, we're hoping that we have, the real-time fact checker with the help of AI that could say, this is coming from somewhere else, and this is where it started, and this is why it's trying to mislead you.
And the thing that we've learned most is that fact-checking after the fact is actually the least effective strategy. The most effective strategy is what's called pre-bunking, is trying to sort of be able to get ahead
Anticipate it.
Exactly. And to be able to say, because then if you've actually read something before you get the message, it actually shifts your brain. After the fact, our brain has this, it's confirmation bias. It has a way of clicking into place. If you can start doing these things in advance, and we can see, because we track networks that are kind of, these things percolate sort of in very fringe communities before they start to break through into more mainstream communities. So if you are there, in some ways it's almost like a 2 or 3 day future sort of, like glass.
Yeah, it's like a Minority Report, the movie where there's the precogs. I'm going really deep in the bag here for this one, but you're seeing the crime before it occurs.
And that's exactly what we've been calling it.
Okay, there you go.
So you're not as crazy as you think you are.
There we go. Yes. I wanted to ask you about the meta ban, and that's something that the news media, including CBC, are dealing with, and what impact that has on all of this.
It has had a significant impact, because then one of the things that makes Canada unique or makes Canada different is that we still have sort of core media outlets that, yes, you're going to have fringes who say they don't trust them, but the majority of Canada does. And so what I'm getting is to learn more and more as I spend more time on this is it's not about different perspectives. You can have different perspectives on, the budget and whether you should be cutting this much or that much, or, defense on how much it should be increased or decreased. But it's this idea that we no longer have the same facts, that there is literally different realities. And if you live in a different reality, then it doesn't really matter what anyone says because it's your reality. But it's not reality. And I think that's what makes Canada quite different. We still have these kind of institutions that link us and create this common reality. There are fringes. But the problem is with the ban is therefore there is no longer trusted sources. And Facebook is where a significant portion of Canadian adults get their news. And so if the source is not corrupted, but if the source is not sort of based in fact-checking, however you want to, yes, there are biases for sure, but at least they're using the same facts.
Mm-hmm. This upcoming event, I know you're excited about it. It's people from across the spectrum at the university coming out. Tell us a bit about it.
So it's basically going to be an hour and a half. It's, I think, the best of academics or academia, where you have sort of a few of us who are really passionate about what we love to do and what we love to research, everything from air quality to small nuclear power plants and the future of what that would look like. And so it really allows, and all the talks are only 8 minutes, so even less than what you just heard from me. So
there you go.
So if you really don't like what I'm saying. You only had
Selling,
8 minutes of me. And so it's really just a kind of a little, it's a taste of research. And then you get to meet with us afterwards, so you can like then, harangue me and tell me how wrong everything that I'm saying is. Just be nice about it. I cry easily. But you can just talk with everyone and get a sense of it. And it's just a good way of kind of staying engaged and just sort of enjoying what a lot of people spend a lot of time trying to figure out.
And I looked through the list of the researchers that are going to be featured, including yourself, and we've had quite a few on the show.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just a really good group of folks. Brian, really appreciate you coming in. Thanks for the conversation.
Always a pleasure.